The message arrived at 12:17 a.m., a brief vibration on a phone that received nothing except wire transfers and encrypted warnings, but this one was different. It came from an unknown number, a child's number. "He's hurting my mom. Please, someone help." The crime lord, Nikolai Voss, stared at the screen. He assumed it was misdirected, a wrong number, a prank. Then another message followed, shorter, more broken. "I'm under the bed. He said he'll kill her." Nikolai's breath stopped. He had built fear. He had sold it, weaponized it, profited from it for 2 decades. But he had never witnessed this, a child reaching out to a total stranger because every other door had been shut in her face. He typed 4 words back. "Tell me the address."
Sometimes one decision changes everything.
No pause, no deliberation. His men looked up from their card game as he rose from his chair, buttoned his coat, and walked straight out of the room without explanation. "Boss?" one of them called after him. He didn't respond. Something in those broken sentences had reached past every wall he had constructed around himself and touched something ancient and unhealed. His car cut through the empty streets of Chicago like a blade. Another message lit up the screen. "I hear him coming down the hall." Nikolai pressed the accelerator down further. Traffic lights streaked past like falling stars. His jaw was tight. His hands were steady. They were always steady, but something behind his ribs was not. 12 minutes felt like a countdown to something he couldn't control. You need to understand something about Nikolai Voss. He had not always been this man. Before the organization, before the reputation, before the name that made city councilmen excuse themselves from rooms, he had been someone else entirely. He had been Marco Delgado, a 22-year-old from a cramped apartment on the south side, raising his little sister while their mother worked overnight shifts at a packing warehouse. Her name was Sophia. She was 9 years old. She collected ceramic frogs and laughed at her own jokes before she finished telling them. She called him Marco Polo whenever she wanted something. She believed, with absolute certainty, that her big brother could solve any problem that existed in the world. One February night, Marco was covering a late shift at a delivery warehouse when his supervisor found him in the loading bay and said 3 words. "You need to call." A gas leak explosion in the building next door had torn through the adjacent wall of their apartment complex. Their mother had been on the fire escape smoking when it happened. She survived with burns on her arms. Sophia had been asleep in her bedroom. Marco ran every block to the hospital. He sat beside Sophia's bed for 11 hours. The doctors used careful language. Critical, internal trauma, we're doing everything. But he could see in their faces what the careful language was hiding. He held her hand and talked to her about nothing. About the ceramic frog she had wanted from the market. About the summer trip they were going to take to see the ocean. About how he was going to buy her a real bedroom one day, with a window that faced the sunrise. Near the end, she opened her eyes. "Marco Polo," she whispered. "I'm here, Soph. Will you do something for me? Anything. Promise you'll look after kids when they're really scared, the ones with nobody left." He promised. It was the last thing she ever asked of him. What followed that winter was a slow and deliberate dismantling of Marco Delgado. Grief, he discovered, could either break a person or forge them into something harder and colder. He chose the forge. He told himself the world had rules that only the powerful could rewrite. He decided to become powerful. It took him 6 years to control a neighborhood, 11 years to own a precinct, 18 years to become the kind of name spoken in whispers in federal briefing rooms. And somewhere in those 18 years, Marco Delgado stopped existing. What remained was Nikolai Voss. The GPS said 2 minutes to destination. Another message appeared on his screen. I can't wake her up. There's blood on the floor.
The worst part is when a child is left alone.
And then, a few seconds later, I'm really tired. I think I need to sleep. Nikolai recognized that tone. He had heard it once before, in a hospital, in February, a lifetime ago. That was the sound of a child's body beginning to surrender. He typed back immediately, one hand on the wheel. Don't sleep, stay with me. What's your name? The response took a moment. Lily. Lily, my name is Nick. I'm 1 minute away. You stay awake, can you do that for me? I'll try. Good girl. Tell me something about your mom. Her name is Claire. She sings when she cooks. She lets me stay up late on Fridays and we watch movies together. Something cracked open inside Nikolai's chest. This child, hiding in terror, was describing Friday night movies. She was describing the kind of ordinary, irreplaceable life that Sophia never got to finish. He pulled up to the address, a narrow, 2-story house with a broken rain gutter hanging over the front porch and one window glowing amber from inside. No police cars, no neighbors watching, complete isolation. He heard a man's voice through the walls, loud and slurred, calling out threats. His phone buzzed one final time. He's in the hallway. Nikolai moved toward the house. The man's name, he would learn later, was Curtis Hale. He was large, red-faced, radiating the particular confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences. He appeared at the end of the hallway and stopped dead when he saw a stranger standing in his living room wearing a coat that probably cost more than his car. "Who are you?" Curtis demanded. "Get out of my house." Nikolai said nothing. He simply looked at him the way a surgeon looks at a problem, without emotion, with complete clarity. Curtis charged. What happened next took approximately 4 seconds. When it was over, Curtis was on the floor, with Nikolai crouched over him, one hand applying precise pressure to his collarbone in a way that made movement extraordinarily inadvisable. "Where?" Nikolai said quietly, "is the little girl?" Curtis made the poor decision of lying. Nikolai adjusted his grip. Curtis immediately reconsidered. "Upstairs," he gasped. "Back room." "And the mother?" Curtis's eyes moved to the living room, where Claire Marsh lay unconscious on the floor, her dark hair spread around her, her breathing shallow. She was alive. Nikolai had already checked her pulse. He had done it before Curtis appeared, in the same motion, in the same breath. From upstairs, a small voice called down. "Nick? Is that you?" She had remembered. Even in all of that darkness and fear, she had held on to the name a stranger had given her in a text message. "I'm here, Lily," he called back, keeping his voice even. "Everything is all right. Come down when you're ready." He looked back down at Curtis. In the kitchen, away from the child's eyes, Nikolai gave Curtis Hale the clearest and most consequential conversation of his life. He listened to the excuses, the relationship with Claire, the financial help he claimed to have provided, the idea that he had merely been trying to discipline a grieving child who had lost her father 8 months earlier in a construction accident. Nikolai let him finish. Then he said, "I have spent 20 years dealing with dangerous men, and I have learned one thing with absolute certainty. The most dangerous men are not the ones who hurt rivals. They are the ones who choose victims who cannot fight back." He leaned forward. "You are going to leave this city tonight. You will not contact Claire Marsh. You will not come within 50 miles of Lily. You will find somewhere else to be, and you will stay there, and you will never again raise your hand to someone who cannot stop you." Curtis swallowed. "And if I don't?" "Then I will find you," Nikolai said simply. "And I want you to understand something about that. I won't be angry when I do. I won't be emotional. I'll simply be efficient." Curtis left through the back door without his jacket. Lily was sitting at the bottom of the stairs when Nikolai returned to the living room. She was small, maybe 8 years old, wearing pajamas with little hedgehogs printed on them. Her hair was tangled, her face was wet, but she looked up at him with an expression that Nikolai had not seen directed at himself in more than 20 years. Pure, uncomplicated trust. "Is he gone?" she asked. "He's gone." "Is he coming back?" "No." She nodded, accepting this. Then she said, "Why did you come? You don't know us." Nikolai sat down on the bottom step beside her, which put him at her height. He thought about how to answer honestly without overwhelming her. "A long time ago," he said, "my little sister asked me to make a promise. She asked me to help kids who were scared and had nobody else." Lily considered this. "What was her name?" "Sophia." "Does she know you kept your promise tonight?" Nikolai felt something shift behind his eyes. "I think so," he said. "Yes." Lily reached over and took his hand with the simple directness that only children possess. No hesitation, no calculation, just the clean gesture of a person who has decided to trust you. "She would be proud of you," Lily said.
Sometimes the most powerful words come from those who've suffered most.
In 20 years, no one had ever said that to him, and it was an 8-year-old girl in hedgehog pajamas in the worst night of her life who finally did. Dr. Patricia Ruiz arrived 18 minutes later with a medical bag and the particular discretion that came from a decade of working adjacent to Nikolai's world. She assessed Claire, stabilized her, and arranged for her quiet transfer to a private clinic where the questions would be minimal and the care would be excellent. Nikolai stepped outside while Patricia worked and made 3 phone calls. The first was to his financial manager, instructing him to establish an anonymous education trust for a minor named Lily Marsh, enough to cover everything from elementary school through university, with a cost of living supplement until she turned 22. The second was to his head of security, with specific instructions regarding Curtis Hale's movements and a clear description of the consequences if those movements ever turned back toward Chicago. The third was to his second-in-command, Victor. "Clear my Sundays," Nikolai said. "All of them?" "All of them, indefinitely." 6 months later, Lily Marsh had a bedroom with a window that faced the sunrise. Claire had recovered. The bruises had faded. She had found a job she liked, in a neighborhood she felt safe in a building where the landlord had mysteriously agreed to a rent that was significantly below market rate and had no memory of why. And every Sunday afternoon, a black car parked on their street, and a man in an expensive coat knocked on their door and stayed for dinner. Lily called him Uncle Nick. He taught her chess. He helped her with her science projects. He brought her ceramic frogs from wherever his travels took him, because she had mentioned once, casually, that she used to collect them before the hard year began. He never explained to her, and she never asked, exactly who he was, or how he had found her, or what had happened to Curtis Hale after he left through that back door. Children understand more than adults give them credit for, and Lily understood enough. She understood that he had come when she called. She understood that he had kept a promise to a girl named Sophia, and she understood, in the simple and unshakable way that children understand important things, that he was exactly who he was supposed to be. Her message had gone to the wrong number, but the wrong number had turned out to be the only right answer she ever needed. Because sometimes it takes the courage of a child to remind a lost man who he was always meant to become.
Thank you for watching and for being here. If this story touched you, please subscribe and leave a like. It really helps this channel grow.